Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. They called me a traitor, my own parents, all because I canceled the Florida trip they tricked me into just so I could avoid being their unpaid babysitter. I'm Rachel. I'm 33, child-free by choice, and apparently that makes me the family's go-to helper until I finally said no. I booked a one-way ticket to Maui instead and let them figure it out. But what happens when choosing peace feels like betrayal? When your silence starts to scream louder than words? Have you ever been guilted into something just because you're the responsible one? I'd love to hear how you handled it. Drop your story in the comments. After 3 years of working late, skipping weekends, and pouring every ounce of energy into my job, I finally clicked submit on my vacation request. 10 days, 10 whole days that belonged only to me. No meetings, no deadlines, no fake smiles over coffee-stained reports. I leaned back in my creaky apartment chair and let the idea sink in. I hadn't taken more than a long weekend since 2019. The fantasy was already forming in my mind. Early morning swims, paperback novels at beachside cafes, falling asleep to ocean sounds instead of Slack notifications. I could practically feel the sun warming my skin as I scrolled through photos of tropical resorts. Just as I was about to compare 2 dreamy hotels in Maui, my phone buzzed. It was from Mom. Sunday dinner 5 p.m. sharp. Don't forget. Right, family dinner. Like gravity, unmovable and always inconvenient. I tapped the message, sighed and closed my laptop. That was just how it went with the Walkers. No matter how old you got, no matter how far you lived, Sunday dinner was non-negotiable. Especially when it came with Mom's signature tone. The kind that was sweet like syrup and just as sticky. 3 days later, I boarded a quick flight from New York to Austin. Even the TSA agent seemed surprised when I said I was flying just for a weekend. Family, he asked. Unfortunately, I answered before I could stop myself. He chuckled. I didn't. By the time I pulled into my parents' driveway, the suburban chaos had already begun. Jason's minivan was parked crookedly in front, its windows fogged with tiny fingerprints. Melissa's SUV was nearby, practically bursting with toys, snack wrappers, and 2 empty car seats. Inside, the house sounded like a zoo before feeding time. Children shouting, adults talking over each other, the dishwasher trying and failing to drown it all out. I stepped inside and Mom spotted me instantly. There she is, she sang, arms open wide. We were just talking about summer plans. I hadn't even set my purse down before Jason hollered from the living room. Rachel, can you grab Sophie? She's trying to climb the bookshelf again. Of course she was. I crossed the room quickly and swooped up my niece just before she could knock over the family photos on the top shelf. Sophie squealed, wrapped her arms around my neck, and laughed like I was her personal amusement park. Thanks, Jason said, barely looking up from the game he was playing with Caleb. You owe me a margarita, I replied, but I already knew I'd never see it. The kitchen smelled like roast chicken and mashed potatoes, classic Walker comfort food. Mom was pulling dinner rolls from the oven like it was Thanksgiving. Dad stood behind her, carving the meat with the seriousness of a heart surgeon. Dinner's almost ready, Mom said. We've got so much to talk about. I took my seat at the far end of the table, the one that used to belong to Grandma before she passed. It always felt a little colder there, a little more distant from the action. But tonight, it put me in the perfect position to observe. Jason and Melissa were mid-discussion about something involving plane tickets to Florida. I tuned in just in time to hear Melissa say, "The resort has a splash pad and a lazy river. The kids are going to lose their minds." What resort? I asked. Jason looked up with a grin. The one we're all going to. Didn't Mom tell you? We're thinking Florida this year, Clearwater Beach. You're coming, right? I was actually planning a solo trip, I replied cautiously. Somewhere quiet, just me. Melissa tilted her head. Alone? That's kind of sad. Ari, don't you want to spend time with the family? It's been years since we've all traveled together. I blinked. You mean since the mountain trip? When I spent every day inside with the kids while the rest of you went hiking. That was different, Jason said quickly. The kids were younger. They're still kids. We'll help more this time, Mom chimed in. You won't have to lift a finger if you don't want to. I didn't know how to respond. Every part of me wanted to shout, I don't believe you. But then I looked around. All their faces were so eager, so expectant. Even the kids squirming in their seats were humming with excitement at the idea of a beach vacation. I guess maybe, I said, almost without realizing it. A cheer erupted. Mom clapped her hands. Jason high-fived Melissa like they'd won something. I gave a weak smile, but inside I felt like I just signed a contract without reading the fine print. Dinner continued. There were stories and laughter, spilled juice, and negotiations over who got the last roll. At one point, Emma smeared mashed potatoes across her face and giggled wildly. Jason turned to me and tossed a baby wipe my way. "Can you clean up, Emma, real quick?" I hadn't even taken a bite of my own food yet. I froze for a second. Then, on autopilot, I wiped her cheeks, smiled for the sake of peace, and handed her back to her father. He didn't even say thank you. The room buzzed around me. Cheerful, familiar, messy, but my plate remained untouched. I stared down at the mashed potatoes, now cool and congealed. My vacation had shifted from ocean breeze and solitude to sunscreen, sticky hands, and background noise. So this is what they meant by family time. "We've already booked the rooms, RA?" Mom chirped through the phone like this was good news. "All you have to do is hop on the same flight. Isn't that easy?" I pressed the phone between my ear and shoulder as I wrestled. "Ed, with a stubborn zipper on my suitcase, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "But the flight's full. The best I could find leaves a day later." There was a pause. "Oh," Mom said. "Well, that's okay. You'll get some rest before all the excitement. We'll save you a beach chair." It wasn't what she said that bothered me. It was how unconcerned she sounded. If this were any other year, she'd have gone into panic mode. "What if your sister needs help with the kids at the airport? Who'll hold the diaper bag?" But now it was, "See you when you get there?" After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my packing list. Swimsuits, flip-flops, books I wouldn't have time to read if history repeated itself. The apartment was hot, New York summer heat creeping through my cracked window, and my AC rattled like it might give up at any second. A notification buzzed on my laptop. An email from work. My boss, Marcy, reminding me to finalize the campaign timeline before I left. I replied, "On it." Then added, almost jokingly, "Unless my family decides to rope me into free babysitting again." Marcy replied within a minute, "You still haven't learned to say no, huh? You're not a nanny, Rachel. You're a grown woman with PTO and a credit score." I smiled. That was Marcy, blunt, with just enough warmth to make it feel like advice, not judgment. The next few days blurred into a rhythm of errands, meetings, and late-night Target runs. I bought travel-sized sunscreen, packed snacks, and charged all my devices. What I didn't do, what I was waiting for, was the inevitable text. "Emergency. Can you take Liam for a few hours?" But it never came. Not once in 3 whole weeks did anyone ask me to babysit. Melissa sent me photos of the resort. Jason texted a funny meme about vacation dad mode. Even Mom sent a link to the weather in Clearwater Beach with a sun emoji. It was all strangely polite, peaceful even. I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they'd meant what they said. Maybe they had finally realized I wasn't just the single sister with no obligations. Maybe this time they really did want me to relax too. The night before I was supposed to leave, I stood in my kitchen folding clothes into neat rolls. My suitcase sat open on the table, half-packed. I'd even ordered a new beach towel with pineapples on it. It felt almost absurd how hopeful I'd let myself become. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Melissa. The preview lit up on my lock screen. "She actually believes we won't ask her to babysit. LOL. I froze. My thumb hovered above the screen. The message was gone, deleted. But it was too late. I'd already read it. My brain replayed every word. Every syllable sunk in with a kind of heaviness I couldn't brush off. I opened the chat. Nothing there but a new message. "Hey, can't wait for poolside drinks." I stared at it. Then I stared at my suitcase, the rolled shirts, the sunscreen, the little bottle of aloe vera I'd added just in case. Then I opened my photo app and took a screenshot of the preview message. To be sure I hadn't imagined it, I hadn't. That one sentence unraveled everything. The politeness, the calm, the total radio silence on childcare favors. It wasn't change, it was strategy. They hadn't respected my time. They had just learned to be quieter about how they planned to use it. My fingers felt cold against the phone screen. I sat down slowly, the pineapple towel crumpling in my lap. It wasn't paranoia, it was proof. Outside, a siren echoed faintly through the city. My neighbor's dog barked twice. Somewhere down the hall, someone slammed a cabinet. Life went on around me like nothing had changed. But for me, something had. I looked back at my suitcase, open and expectant. It had no idea the vacation it was about to take had just been rewritten. I canceled my Florida hotel and hit confirm on a one-way ticket to Maui. There was no grand ceremony, no dramatic music playing in the background, just a quiet click of a mouse, the soft whir of my old apartment fan, and the faint scent of overripe bananas I kept forgetting to toss. I sat still for a long moment, staring at the confirmation email on my laptop screen. My heart wasn't racing, my hands weren't shaking. If anything, I felt calm. This wasn't a tantrum, this was release. Marcy's words came back to me like a lighthouse beam through fog. Don't let guilt plan your vacation. Well, guilt had been grounded. And for the first time in years, I was going somewhere no one expected me to be. Literally, I began moving with purpose, closing tabs, deleting the Florida itinerary, dragging folders marked Clearwater Beach into my trash. Then I got up and started to pack all over again. This time it wasn't sunscreen for toddlers or puzzle books to keep kids busy on a plane. It was just me. A soft linen cover-up, 2 books I'd been meaning to read for years, a journal, 1 black bathing suit, and a small tube of aloe vera because I planned to get sunburned the good way. I even packed a single dress, one that hadn't seen daylight since before the pandemic. I didn't know where I'd wear it, but I liked the idea that I might. Later that night, I joined the family for dinner, one last act in the play before I left the stage. The usual noise greeted me when I walked through the door. Plastic cups clattering, the scent of overcooked vegetables, kids shrieking with joy or exhaustion or both. Melissa greeted me with a bright smile and a hug that lasted just long enough to feel performative. Jason was wrangling Olivia under the dining room table. The kids can't wait to build sandcastles with their favorite aunt, he said. You better pack your beach shovel. I smiled. Not wide, just enough. I'll see what I can do. I passed plates, I listened to updates on summer sports schedules and camp drop-offs. I nodded when Mom reminded everyone to bring matching swimsuits for the family beach photo. I even laughed once at a joke Dad made about Florida humidity being worse than toddler tantrums. I played my role so well I nearly fooled myself that night. The last few items I sent a text to Marcy. Change of plans, I'm going to Hawaii. Her reply was instant. Proud of you. Send me a pic when you get there, preferably one with a coconut drink. The next morning I didn't leave a note. I didn't text anyone goodbye. I simply grabbed my suitcase, called a cab, and watched the familiar blur of the city fade into sunrise as we drove toward JFK. The airport was quiet in a way I hadn't expected. It was early enough that the rush hadn't started yet. I passed a young couple in matching hoodies, an elderly man in a cowboy hat reading a newspaper, and a teenager in pajama pants clutching a stuffed turtle. No one knew me. No one expected anything of me. I boarded, found my seat by the window, and settled in. A flight attendant offered me a small water bottle. I took it, thanked her, and placed it on the tray table without opening it. As the last few passengers boarded and the overhead bins clicked shut, I reached for my phone. One deep breath. Then I tapped the little airplane icon, and just like that I was gone. Outside the window, the tarmac shimmered in the morning sun. The plane began to taxi, slowly at first, then faster until the wheels lifted and we rose above the gray rooftops in summer haze. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and whispered under my breath, let them figure it out. No more explaining. No more apologizing. No more justifying why I didn't want to be the family fallback plan. This wasn't about them anymore. This was about me. The hum of the engine soothed me. I imagined the messages that would soon pile up. Where are you? Did you miss the flight? And I felt no urge to respond. Not yet. Maybe not at all. For the first time in years, my face felt soft, my jaw unclenched. I wasn't pretending. I wasn't negotiating. I wasn't watching the clock. I was flying toward freedom, and it felt like peace. The moment I landed in Maui, I kept my phone off. I walked through the open-air terminal, breathing in the warm floral air as if it were medicine. Palm trees swayed lazily. A ukulele played somewhere in the distance. It was exactly the kind of welcome my soul needed, and I wasn't about to let a text notification ruin it. At the hotel check-in desk, A young woman handed me my room key with a smile. "First time visiting?" "Yes," I said. "But I have a feeling it won't be my last." I took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, rolled my suitcase into a sunlit room with a view of the ocean, and sat on the balcony with a cold glass of water. I stared at the horizon for a long time. Eventually, I knew I had to check my phone. The moment I powered it on, it buzzed like a trapped insect. Then again until the vibrations blurred together in a non-stop tremor. Missed calls, voicemails, group chat notifications, messages with my name in all caps. My fingers hovered above the screen like I was disarming a bomb. The first text I opened was from Mom. "Where are you? The flight landed hours ago. Jason checked in. The resort's packed. Kids asking about you every 5 minutes. Melissa, is this a joke? You seriously didn't get on the flight?" Then came the voicemails. One from Susan, my mother, was already 2 minutes long. I didn't even press play. I could guess the contents. Disappointment, guilt, and an underlying message that this was all somehow my fault. I scrolled through one after another. Messages shifted from confusion to frustration, then guilt, then full-on accusation. "You let the kids down. Melissa and I are swamped. You said you'd come." I didn't reply. I simply opened the group chat and typed, "Please don't disturb my vacation." Then I put the phone face down on the bedside table. That evening, I went down to the bar near the pool. It was quiet, except for the murmur of ocean waves and the occasional clink of glass. I ordered a Mai Tai and took a seat by myself at the far end under a canopy of string lights. Next to me sat an older couple, gray-haired and sun-kissed, sipping something pink and frozen. They looked like they'd been married for decades. The woman wore a wide-brimmed hat and a necklace made of tiny shells. She noticed my phone still dark on the bar. "Escaping?" she asked. I smiled faintly, trying to. Her husband chuckled. "Phones always catch up eventually, people too." "I know," I said. "But for now, I'm pretending I live on a different planet." The woman leaned in just slightly. "Sometimes protecting your peace looks like betrayal to people who benefited from your silence." I looked at her, startled. The words hit deeper than I expected. She didn't press further, just raised her glass, and I did the same. Later that night in my room, I sat cross-legged on the bed, towels still wrapped around my damp hair. The room was dim, lit only by the low golden glow from a lamp near the balcony door. I checked my phone again. Another missed call from Mom. For a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail, but some part of me, curiosity maybe, made me swipe to answer. "Rachel Marie," she burst out. "What in the world is going on? Do you know how worried we've been?" "I'm fine, Mom," I said calmly. "Where are you? You didn't get on the flight, and you didn't tell anyone." "I know. You can't just disappear like that." "I didn't disappear," I said. "I just went where I actually wanted to go." There was a beat of silence, then sharper. "You're being incredibly selfish." I exhaled through my nose. "No, Mom. What's selfish is expecting me to give up my first vacation in years to watch your grandkids while you sip cocktails. That's not what this was. Isn't it?" I said. Melissa's message kind of gave it away. "What message?" "The one where she accidentally told someone I actually believed I wouldn't be babysitting." My mother faltered. "That was a misunderstanding. That was a plan," I said, voice steady. "And you never asked me. You just expected me to show up and fall in line like always." "Because we trust you," she tried. "Because you're reliable." "No," I said. "Because I'm easy to take advantage of." Her silence on the other end was louder than shouting. "You know what?" I said. "I don't need to justify this. I'm on vacation. I'm safe. I'm happy." I'd already tapped to end the call. My thumb hovered for a second. Then, without hesitation, I opened the family group chat settings and hit mute notifications. Then I blocked the chat. I sat very still after that, waiting perhaps for the guilt to crash in, but it didn't. Instead, I felt something that had been missing for a long time: weightlessness. I changed into a light cotton dress, grabbed my room key, and walked barefoot to the edge of the resort where the beach met the bar deck. I found the same seat under the string lights. This time I ordered another Mai Tai. I didn't check my phone, I didn't need to. I leaned back in the chair, closed my eyes, and let the breeze run through my hair. It smelled like salt and flowers. Let them sit in the silence they created. The messages kept coming. Lisa and I haven't had one peaceful dinner since you ghosted, Jason wrote. Thanks for that. I stared at the screen, sitting cross-legged on a cushioned lounge chair under a plumeria tree. The air was soft. The breeze smelled like fruit and sea salt, and yet my fingers curled tighter around the phone. The light from the screen made my eyes ache. Another message arrived, this time from Melissa. I told Olivia you weren't coming. She cried for an hour, followed by a second. She said you don't love her anymore. And a third, we're trying our best, RA. This isn't easy on us either. I closed the app and locked my phone. It didn't help. Their words clung to me like sweat. I leaned back and tilted my head to the sky, trying to breathe past the growing pressure in my chest, the kind that made even the quietest paradise feel like a tight hallway. I pulled my journal from the side table and flipped to a blank page, hoping to write my way out of it. But my hand hovered, pen tip poised, as memory flooded back like an ambush. A winter trip 3 years ago. The family had rented a ski cabin in Colorado. I had arrived excited, thinking maybe this time would be different. On the second day, Caleb got sick, fever, stomach flu, the whole ordeal. By day 3, I was wiping up vomit, folding laundry, and boiling rice for bland meals. While everyone else hit the slopes, Jason posted selfies from the gondola, and Melissa tagged me in a family photo with a caption. Wish you were here. I had been there, just invisible. The memory made my eyes sting. I set the journal aside and stood up. The ocean was glittering a few yards away, but instead of heading toward the beach, I turned back toward the resort's rental hut. I needed distraction, something that required balance, something that left no room for guilt. An hour later, I was wobbling on a paddle board, knees trembling as tiny waves licked at the board's edge. The instructor had been kind, giving me a few tips and a thumbs up as I pushed off. But out on the water, where I should have felt free, my mind refused to cooperate. Jason's voice rang again in my head. Thanks for that. As if I'd taken something from them, as if I owed them my peace. By late afternoon, I was hiking a narrow trail that led to a low waterfall tucked into the mountainside. I followed the path slowly, passing couples and solo hikers, overhearing snatches of happy, trivial conversations. No one here expected anything from me. No one was silently tallying how helpful or disappointing I'd been. At the top, I sat on a flat rock beside the falls, damp shoes dangling in the cool stream. I watched the water spill over, endless and uncaring. And for a moment I wished I could dissolve into it. Back in my room that evening, I called Marcy. Her face appeared on the screen, framed by her office window and stacks of paper. Well, look at you. You have that sun-kissed rebellion glow. I laughed once without humor. Doi. She raised an eyebrow. What happened? I told her everything. The texts, the guilt, the crying niece, the silence from my mom that somehow hurt worse than anything anyone had said. When I was done, she leaned forward. Rachel, they don't miss you. They miss the free labor. That's not the same. I didn't answer right away. She continued. You've always been the reliable one, the helper. But who checks on you? Who makes sure you're okay? My eyes filled before I could stop them. I pressed my knuckles to my mouth. It wasn't loud or messy. It was the kind of cry that came from somewhere deeper than tiredness. It was the sound of 1,000 overlooked moments finally surfacing. She let me sit in silence for a while. When I spoke again, my voice was quiet. I just wanted one vacation. And you took it, she said. Good. After we hung up, I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles. The room was quiet, the lights soft. My skin smelled like sunscreen and salt. I felt hollow and full at the same time. I picked up my phone and opened the group chat one last time. The latest message from Jason read, If you don't care about us anymore, just say it. I did something I hadn't dared to do before. I deleted the app, not out of spite, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Then I reopened my messages, not the group thread, just the main screen, and typed slowly, See you when I get back. Or maybe not. I hit send, then turned off the phone and placed it face down on the table. Outside, the wind stirred the palm trees, and for the first time since arriving, I felt like the storm inside me had started to pass. The bouquet showed up on a Tuesday. It was a tall arrangement. Sunflowers, irises, and something purple I couldn't name, all crammed into a glass vase too narrow for their stems. There was no card, just a yellow sticky note folded over the rim. Thanks for nothing, Jason. I stared at it on my kitchen counter for a long time before moving it to the window, where it caught the morning light and looked far more generous than the message attached. Somewhere behind that note, I sensed a bitter kind of apology, a man too stubborn to say sorry but too guilty not to send something. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I poured my coffee and took it out onto the fire escape. The New York summer. It was still thick in the air, but there was a breeze, and it carried the faint scent of asphalt and roasted peanuts from the cart on the corner. A few weeks had passed since I returned from Maui. I hadn't said much. I hadn't responded to texts. I hadn't opened the family group chat, which, based on the red notification bubble, was still very much alive without me. Instead, I'd settled into something new. Quieter mornings, walks in Central Park with no destination, workdays that ended on time, and dinners cooked just for me. I had become protective of my peace, the way one might guard a secret garden, not walled off but no longer public property. Then the letter arrived. It came in Melissa's handwriting on cream-colored stationery, as if formality might cushion the weight of what needed to be said. She wrote, "I was wrong. I thought I was including you, but really I was assigning you. I never asked if you wanted to help, I just assumed. And when you didn't show up, I felt abandoned. But that was because I had put you in a role you never agreed to play. I'm sorry, Rachel." Truly. There were no excuses, just a line that said, "I hope one day we can sit beside each other. Not because we have to, but because we want to." I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of my journal. A few days later, I got a text from Mom. "We miss you. We didn't see it then. We do now." I stared at those two sentences for a long time. They weren't elaborate, but they weren't defensive either. And for my mother, that was monumental. I replied, "Coffee." We met at a cafe halfway between her hotel and my apartment. She showed up early, something I never remembered her doing before, and stood when I walked in. Her face looked softer, like she'd exhaled something that had been lodged in her chest for years. We ordered lattes and sat by the window. For the first few minutes, we talked about the weather, a squirrel that had jumped onto her hotel balcony, my job, nothing heavy. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a napkin. "I wrote a few things down," she said, voice tight, "so I wouldn't get emotional and mess it up." I smiled but didn't interrupt. I realized as she began unfolding the napkin that we've always treated you like the one who didn't need anything because you didn't ask, because you were strong, and we leaned on that too much. I looked at her, but she didn't meet my eyes. And I'm sorry, not just for Florida, for all of it. For every time I said, "You're single, so of course you have time to help." That wasn't fair, and it wasn't true. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not entirely forgiveness, but maybe room for it. "I'm not ready to come back to Sunday dinner," I said. She nodded quickly. "That's okay, but maybe someday." Her hand reached for mine on the table. "Whenever you're ready, on your terms." 2 months later, I pulled into my parents' driveway just before 6. The house looked the same. The same wreath on the door, the same crack in the pavement near the porch. But something felt different. Dinner was quieter. It weren't dumped on me the moment I walked in. Melissa made a point to wrangle Olivia when she started climbing the couch. Jason didn't even hand me a sippy cup. At one point, while passing the salad, Susan squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thank you for making us better." I didn't answer. I just gave her a small smile and kept passing the bowl. That night, as I drove home through the sleepy streets, the windows down and the wind threading through my hair, I thought about how far we'd come. They hadn't become perfect, but they were trying, and I wasn't invisible anymore. When I got home, I turned on the lamp by my desk, opened my laptop, and hovered over my work calendar. There it was, a new block of time freshly opened. I clicked New Vacation Request. Destination undecided. Approval no longer needed. Looking back, I'm still not sure what took more courage, leaving that flight behind or finally letting myself be heard. But in choosing peace, I found something more precious than rest. I found clarity. Sometimes the people closest to us forget that silence isn't agreement. It's just exhaustion. And boundaries aren't betrayals, they're invitations to grow. Families change when we stop pretending and start speaking. If this story reminded you of a time you had to choose yourself, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts because stories like ours are more common than we think.